is a very important person I want to introduce you to if he would care to stay on the webinar this time. Richard Kline from Texas Board of Directors. How are you?
Good, thank you. How are you? I am not anymore.
Yeah, you're not allowed to touch anything.
And Shauna Lynn Simon from Ontario, Canada. And Shauna Lynn, you are a current Ontario president.
Correct.
You've also served on the board of directors.
Yes.
You've also served in various other positions and committees. Yes. And Richard, you've also served in other leadership positions as well on the local area. So these two are two amazing leaders within RESA, within our staging industry. So I want to thank both of you for coming on today to talk about what's going on. So just to give a little recap about what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about COVID-19. We're going to talk about just some of the insights of things that are going on in the industry. We'll talk a little bit about what RESA is doing to help support you and advocate for our industry, as well as we'll take some questions as well. So again, thank you so much. So COVID-19, I will give you my little assessment of it because I am definitely I think I'm in a unique position. What I've been working on is going state by state and reading every order, state by state, country by country, reading the orders of what it is that each state has decided people can and cannot do, trying to determine what is essential, what is not essential. And it's one of those things that's very painstaking, very long, drawn out process. Sometimes I know what the orders say, but we can't really give legal advice. So you kind of have to check with the states and then we can get the information back, and everybody has to be able to kind of make your own assessment of what it is. States will say, yeah, we're using that order, but we don't necessarily know that staging is real estate services. So it's kind of a catch-22 type of a thing. And there's other states, Pennsylvania shut everything down. We've even applied there to try to allow at least our members that we represent in Pennsylvania to be able to destage. And they're the only state that has turned it down. But there's places like Connecticut, where we were absolutely able to keep the doors open for some stagers in that particular area once we applied for that in the very beginning. So we're seeing just different pockets of people handling it differently throughout the different area. Richard, what's the temperature like in your area?
Real estate is an essential service. Staging is included in that, but I mean, at least here in Austin, our local board of realtors, have put in some very strict guidelines for realtors, and so we're having very, very few houses on the market, going on the market right now, very few. I mean, it is still happening, but of course, nobody's going to go look at the properties. Unfortunately, well, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. We have a governor that wants to reopen our state very soon, and that's causing a lot of concern among people that are like myself, that are taking this very seriously. And I mean, he's talking about even opening up restaurants and health clubs and things like that, cool. Which is just scary, scary to all of us. And considering that Texas, is a very, very large state, but we're also 48th, number 48 in terms of testing. We only have, right now we are testing 7 out of every 1,000 people in the state of Texas. So we're a long way from knowing how many people are affected. But our governor and our lieutenant governor have made it very clear that the economy is more important. Texas obviously is a big oil state, and with the price of oil that has just dropped, they're very anxious to get the oil business back online. So it's going to be very scary. I mean, those of us that are taking it seriously are really hoping that people don't start rushing out, without their masks on and trying to get back to life as we knew it before too soon, for fear that we're going to have a strong second wave, which is I'm sure all of our biggest fears. So
Yeah, for sure. Shauna, Lynn, what it's like on your local level, what are you seeing?
So locally, I think that, for most people are really taking the mandate seriously. They're staying at home. They're practicing safe distancing. Essentially, our real estate association, they actually did a really great social media campaign that said it was really cool. It said it was two images. One image said "Realtors know homes," and on the next image it says our realtors know when it's time to stay home, or something along those lines, which I thought was really great, just supporting the mandate. And so how homes are getting listed out of necessity only. We're not really seeing, at first there was definitely a few agents that I was seeing, and this is talking specifically local to my city. I'll talk about the province in a second, but specifically in my city, I definitely saw some agents initially that were like, nope, it's business as usual. Let's keep going. Let's keep listing, And that was very quickly sort of kiboshed. I think that a lot of it, in all honesty, has, I think, just, I don't want to say public shaming, but that was sort of the consensus, was that there wasn't a lot of support for that. So agents that were practicing that were kind of shamed for it. So they've kind of come back to a different, they've definitely pared back a little bit, and everyone just understands, okay, let's just ride this out and see where it goes. Now, I know that other cities in Ontario, and Toronto especially, is very, very mixed in terms of what is considered okay and what is considered business as usual. But the Ontario Association, so OREA, the Ontario Real Estate Association, has issued statements that have said it is not business as usual. You should not be listing a house unless you absolutely have to. The last number that I heard locally was that listings were down 92% from what they should have been from last year. But the houses that are getting listed are selling, and they're selling quickly because obviously there's not a lot out there. So I can understand how some real estate agents are seeing that as a potentially an opportunity. But most are being realistic about, what's best for their clients and for the safety of everyone. There are still certain things that need to be done somewhat in person. So in order to, maintain the integrity of what we're trying to do with controlling the spread, I think that most people are taking it seriously. Our government has been very clear on the actions that we are to take, which I think has definitely helped overall, but real estate is an essential service. So with that, for the most part, I don't know many stagers that are actually still staging. I know that there's a few that, are more doing vacants, and they're not bringing in any assistance or anyone outside of, themselves and their family. But for the most part, most have ceased. And same thing with even D-stages. Most that I talk to have said that they're not D-staging unless the house is closed, unless it's absolutely necessary. I know personally, I paused all my contracts. Our contracts, all of our listings were pulled from the MLS, and even if they were still on, we would have paused the contract anyway and just said, keep the items. It's not worth it for us to come and get them, and we'll work with you to reset them once everything's said and done. So.
Yeah, it's a lot for people to be able to take in. I know that there's a lot of panic, and I know that we've released some information of things that, you can do in the downtime. Not going to lie to y'all, I hear a lot of talk about, we're so bored, I have so much time on my hands, and I'm just telling you, I'm a little envious because...
I'm not bored. No, I'm definitely not bored.
Envious. I don't seem to have a spare moment. In fact, this has tripled our workload at HQ trying to figure it all out. So yeah, some of the things that, Richard, what are some, just a couple tips of what you'd recommend that people do in their downtime?
Well, you can come and clean my house, because I always thought that I didn't clean my house because I didn't have time, and clearly that's not the case. I don't clean my house because I don't want to clean my house. Well, the thing is that we got in. This is a feel sorry for Richard moment here, because 2 weeks before all of this started, we got in almost $100,000 worth of new inventory, because we were gearing up for a very busy season. And so yeah, that's great. So I've been putting together furniture for all this downtime. So that's been a lot of fun. Breaking down cardboard and breaking up styrofoam and putting it in our recycling bin and things like that. So that's been a lot of fun. I've also, I'm waiting for my $1,200 quarantine windfall, because I've got my eye on a tiger pet that I would buy. I've been watching too much Netflix, and I've been baking a whole lot. So yes, I'm not cleaning my house. I'm not exercising. I'm eating constantly, and I'm putting together furniture. So
Yeah.
And my hands are chapped because I keep washing them. So this is my life.
I'm not gonna lie, y'all. Carol Baskin's my spirit animal. I'm just saying. And don't act like you don't know what I'm talking about and that you don't agree at some point or another during the month when you're being quarantined with somebody, that the thought didn't sashay through your mind. I'm just saying.
Cool cats and kittens.
Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. Yes, I love her. Shauna, Lynn, education, yes. I would imagine, would be first on your list for people to do. We've got a lot of resources through RESA. I know you do as well through your training program.
Yeah. I've been busier than ever, I have to say, with, I've got some coaching programs that I've worked on, updates to some courses, because people are just entering these courses faster than I can even keep up with. But in all honesty, before you even get to the training, I would say take a step back and create a really good, solid, and organized workspace. This is something that I hear from so many people realizing now that they're working at home, it doesn't work as well. Like, oh, I usually just work at my dining table and then the kids do their homework there and we all do it together, but like that's not a functional space. So they're realizing that, they don't necessarily have the tools that they need to be productive in the office. And that's why things take you so long to do them. So I think improving efficiencies would definitely be where I would say, first and foremost, the best way to improve efficiencies is to clean up your workspace and organize it in a way that things are at your fingertips where you want them to be at your fingertips. There's a place for everything and everything in its place. And if you don't have a designated place in your house, find one. At the very least, find one for your files, even if it's not right at your desk. Maybe you're still working at the dining table, but have some sort of filing system that works for you. Because as much as we're going online and digital, all this kind of stuff, we still have a lot of paper at the end of the day. So, make sure you're nice and organized. And then I would honestly be looking at what is it going to look like when things do reopen. I don't want to be caught off guard. I don't know about you guys, but I don't want to be caught off guard. I want to make sure that I have the tools and the supplies that I need, but most importantly, that I have the protocols in place. So what does that look like? For example, when we reopen, we've already deemed that we will not be doing owner-occupied immediately. We will do vacant, but not owner-occupied. So we are going to continue on with our virtual consultations. We've got some plans in place for owner-occupied that we're still kind of working out the details for. Vacant stagings we will do, but like each assistant will be traveling in their own vehicle, for example. And so they'll need to submit expense reports for the mileage that they drive. And what do those protocols look like? At what point am I paying that mileage? When do they submit? How do they submit? Like I always have, submit your expense reports by the 15th of the month for that month prior. So having those really clear guidelines and writing it down, I can't say this clear enough, write it down so that you're really clear when things go to open, you're not just winging it. And this way too, this is going to be a big thing, I think, when things reopen, is that homeowners and real estate agents, they're going to be asking the question of what is it that you are going to be doing to protect the safety of myself, of my clients, of yourself and your team. People are going to be looking to us to see that we are being responsible. I don't know about anyone else on here, but I know that when I get emails from suppliers, vendors, other companies or whatever, when their email is focused on, don't worry, we're still serving during COVID-19, but they're not telling me what safety measures they've got in place, it makes me really uncomfortable to support them and to work with them. The ones who have been very vocal and transparent about here's everything that we're doing, and even people that are, I've seen some companies that have said, you know what, we've actually realized that we should have been doing some of these things sooner, so this will stay in place indefinitely. I'm loving that, and I think that most clients are going to love that as well. So you want to be able to be easily prepared to answer questions in writing and be able to say like this, and this.
Yep.
Yeah. To answer a little more seriously, and to piggyback onto what you were just saying, Shauna. yeah, like as an example, I have gone to order food from local restaurants here, and there was one in particular that I went, I paid for it online, and I went to pick it up, and I walked in, and everybody behind the counter, I could see, none of them had on masks, none of them had on gloves, and I just turned around and walked out, because what was the point of yes, their in-house restaurant or their dining room is closed, but if they weren't going to pay attention to safety regulations, then why was I going to be doing that? So
Yeah.
And then we have been doing some D stages, of course, or I have been doing some D stages because everybody else is staying home. Yes, I'm a martyr. But
Another feel sorry for Richard moment. Got it. Yeah.
Exactly. So normally before anything gets loaded on the truck, it all gets wrapped up in shrink wrap and things. But all of our furniture right now, when we're doing a D stage, we're just putting it onto the truck unwrapped, and then when it comes back into the warehouse, we're not what's the word I'm looking for, segregating it from the rest of our inventory.
It's almost quarantining it, essentially.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then all the accessories, when we're unpacking those, they get put onto a separate thing. And again, one of the reasons why why my hands are so chapped is because everything's getting wiped down with Clorox wipes before it goes back on the shelves and things. So the other thing that I've been doing is we do very little occupieds here. My business does very few occupieds, as a matter of course. But what I have been doing a lot of is proposals for when it ends. So we have a lot of proposals out already, and we have several people that have already paid their deposit for when it does end, because realtors know that there's going to be this huge glut of houses that come on the market, and so they know that they want to be first in line.
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and one thing that we're telling our real estate agents as well is that when we are able to do this again, they're going to need to understand that the timing on things is going to be a little bit different, in that we won't enter a property unless it's been vacated for at least 48 hours, possibly 72. We're still kind of working out the details for that. So they have to have that place completely empty of people for a certain amount of time before we'll go in. And then, of course, we'll have all of our protocols in place. But because of that, and because of all that my team will need to do to ensure that we're not bringing things from one location to another, we won't be able to do multiple stages in a day. It's just not going to be safe to do it. So these are all the things that we're trying to, it's always hard to think of every scenario. I mean, it's like, everyone here, I'm sure, can remember when they first made their contract and you try to think of what could possibly go wrong. What do I need to cover myself for? And then sure enough, one of your jobs, like, oh, son of a, I did not have that in my contract. Go back and revise it. And that's going to be the same thing with these protocols. But the more you can be proactive now, trying to anticipate what some of the scenarios are to make sure that you're covered for, and you've got it in writing saying, like, this is our policy. Put it on your website if you need to. Be as transparent as you possibly can about it. I think that will really help to keep things as smooth as possible when things are being reopened. Because I know that it's, going back to the original discussion about, like, what's the overall feeling where you are. Every area is different, and I'm seeing that some people are taking the orders more seriously than others. And so we're going to see that when things are reopening, some people are going to be expecting business as usual when things reopen. And that's not going to be the case. It's just, there is no cure or vaccine for this virus. Therefore, until we have some sort of vaccine, we're going to be extra cautious. We've got at least a year ahead of us for all of this. And I'm not a medical professional. I'm just going based on the information, the data that's been given. But that means that we need to be considerate. I mean, there's going to be plenty of clients still over this next year that are, in a more fragile state, where they're more immunocompromised, they're older, or they're super young, or they've got other underlying conditions, that it's no matter where we're at. Like, flattening the curve doesn't mean we're eradicating the virus. So we are still going to need to be so careful. And so this is not going to be a waste of time by any means to have this in place. And think of it this way: if you ever decide to sell your company, if you can say you have pandemic protocols in place, I mean, add that to the standard operating procedures manual, and you've got this. Like,
this is for sure. It's I'm overwhelmed by it all. I mean, quite honestly, I never thought we'd really see anything like this. And when it first started, I was like, yeah, I was one of those people in the very beginning. I was like, it's not a big deal. And then it's like, wait a minute. Now that country's popped up. Wait a minute. Now another country's popped up. And then it literally, for me, I left work on a Friday thinking it's not going to be so huge. When I woke up Monday morning, I had done a 360. It was like a completely different opinion over the weekend. And even when we had to make the decision to pull RESACon, you know, I really wanted to wait until the 1st of May. Let's see how things are, to really see how this goes. But let's pretend a magic wand happened and everything opened up by July. Because of what happened in between February and now, we couldn't have sold the tickets in order to do it. So you have to make all these very difficult decisions and then try to, you know, put everything together and make a plan to recover from it. I never in a million years thought a medical pandemic would jeopardize an event. So definitely that's one of those things now that on my list, and I will make sure some things get changed in what we're doing, because some people have not been as gracious as we'd like them to be. It's one of those things, you know, when we realized what was happening and we were switching it over to RESACon in person to doing a virtual, trying to get all that together to give the people that already signed up for RESACon options. Like, here's your options. Do you want a total refund? Do you want a package deal with this? Do you want to let your money ride with us? And then now we're trying to get back all the money that we've already paid out for RESACon. In order to try to get all that money back. It's, you know, it's like $50-something thousand you're trying to recover back from other people. So everybody's trying to rob Peter to pay Paul right now, or try to get people to float your money and keep it where it is. I like what Richard said, taking deposits for the future. I totally love that idea. Forward thinking is what we've got to get people to do. I will caution people, if you're going to take a deposit for the future, stick it in a little escrow account.
Yes.
Don't spend it. Don't spend it, because if something goes wrong, you know, and you need to give it back, do the right things. It's going to go a lot further with your clients if you do that as well.
Agree.
We're going to open it up for questions here. We've got some on the sideline. What's everyone's best advice for stagers who are concerned about other stagers who continue to stage despite the shelter-in-place order?
I will tell you, I was actually thinking about this call when I started reading a book just today. Anyone who's familiar with Simon Sinek, I'm a huge fan of his, and he has a book called The Infinite Game, and I'm only like a chapter in, and I will tell you, read just that first chapter and you'll feel a lot better, I promise you. But the short answer is, you have to pay attention to what you are doing and not what they're doing. And I know that it's easier said than done, but we're playing the long game here at the end of the day. And so here's how I'm looking at it. Those real estate agents that still want those stagers to stage, I don't want to work with them. I'm going to align myself instead with, there's going to be a huge shift, I think, in the loyalties coming out of this, that there are probably real estate agents that I worked with previously that I may not work with anymore, because we just sat on different sides of this topic. And there's going to be others that I didn't work with previously. Maybe they worked with another stager and they didn't like how that stager handled things, and now they want to come onto my side. You know, I'm not saying I'm going out there trying to steal anyone's business or trying to do anything underhanded, but the reality is that there is going to be a bit of a shift. So as long as you, at the end of the day, can look back at your mission statement, your company's values, and be proud of how you've handled yourself throughout this, I promise you that will come through. But you need to come from a place of authenticity. You need to come from a place where you're supporting your community, and I can promise you that community will pay you back.
Yeah, I agree. It's difficult. So, I mean, I have so many opinions. I don't even know what to say. It's one of those things where on one hand, I sit where I understand somebody needs to work. On the other hand, it's like, let's just sit down for a minute. Let's just, as a community, especially when I would like to see the local communities get together, it can't be a blanket for everybody, because there could be a local community that, you know, nobody's affected in a particular area, and it's a very, very low rate, and you can all decide as a community to do one thing or the other, and you help each other out. I think one of the problems is that there's not a lot of loyalty with clients sometimes when it's coming with real estate agents. And if you have a local real estate agent who you've worked with, and they're asking you to stage, and you're wanting to sit it out, and nobody should be staging. Let's say you're in an area where it said, no, you can't do it, and then somebody else does it anyway. That's where I have a problem with that. It's like, wait a minute, that's not supporting the community as a whole. And then learn this great word from our great treasurer, Ryan Marsh, macroeconomics, people. I'm going to act like I know what all Ryan would say. I don't, but we're going to wing it. It's going to be so much more to recover from that when people are doing that. So think about, you know, locally what it is that you're doing. But again, ultimately, you could have, you know, all your competition around you, everybody around you doing all what you think is the wrong thing, whether it be accurate or not. And the only thing you can do is focus on what you do. It's one of those things. I talk about competition all the time. I always recreate it back to the horses. You focus on what you do and what you do and what you do best, and try to ignore the rest, and just keep doing it, working it on your own business and your recovery plan.
Exactly.
Right. Shauna, I mean, I don't know. It sounds like Canada has a much more comprehensive policy than the United States does. I mean, and maybe that's just, you know, an outsider looking in, but, you know, one of the points that I've made several times in several different formats and medias and in mediums is that every state and every town and every county in the United States has a different policy about what they allow. And that has made it extremely difficult to have a united front among people within the staging industry, because, you know, here in Austin, staging is considered a part of an essential business of real estate. In you know, parts of California, you know, it's completely shut down. You know, and when there's places in Wyoming or Colorado that haven't, you know, they've heard of the COVID-19, but they haven't had any kind of instance of it. For us to be able to say, no, you can't do any staging, that's not fair. You know, I mean, yes, it would be great if, you know, if our administration said, you know, this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it to combat this, but that's not how our country does things. And you know, for us to be able to then say, well, I don't want to work with or, you know, this stager's continuing to stage and I'm not doing it, and that's not fair because I'm paying attention to health protocols. Well, they're not doing anything wrong. They're not doing anything illegal. I mean, they might be doing something that I don't necessarily approve of, and they're not running their business the way that I would run my business, but that's not my business, right? So.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's very difficult. I mean, you know, we're having a really difficult time. We've made decisions in our own business that, you know, that are costing us a lot of money because we're taking it seriously, and,
yeah, same.
and others that are, you know, it's like, oh, you know, sacrifice the weak, you know, that kind of attitude.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I think for me, what's bothered me, what I've seen is when somebody goes out online and brags about it. Like when they're in an area when it has been deemed not essential, and they're like, hey, I'm getting phone calls, I'm going to scoop them up anyway.
Yeah.
That's where I have a problem with it. But yeah, you're right, Richard. If it's legal in your area, nobody's doing anything illegal. So everybody could have a different reaction, moral or ethical, whatever you want to call it, political even. And that's where you just have to focus on what you do. Worry about your own self.
Well, I think, so I see a couple of the comments that are coming in here talking about, essential versus non-essential. And yes, real estate is considered essential, but it's, I guess, where all the government sort of fell short, and I don't blame them for this, so was they didn't define which services specifically. Instead, they defined which businesses. So they've defined real estate business as essential, which is why, like I said, I know that the Ontario Association came out and made a statement saying that doesn't mean you just go and do business as usual. You should only be listing houses if it is absolutely 100% necessary. So, for example, I have one of my agents listed a house for a 92-year-old gentleman where she's like, I don't know that he's got 6 months to wait to list his house. We've got to sell his house now. People that are moving into long-term care facilities, people who have purchased houses, and one way or another, that other transaction is going to close and they've got to sell their house because of it. Or someone who just needs to get into a house to get out of an unsafe situation. Like, there are going to be emergency type situations that are considered essential, that are going to be helping people on a deeper level. While yes, home staging is a part of the real estate industry, I don't believe that we are part of the real estate services that make things essential. We are marketing, we are not saving lives. That's really what it comes down to. Are we an important tool? Absolutely we are. And to anyone who's asking about what the state of the real estate industry is after this, I actually did a Q&A session with one of the local brokerages where I am. There's about 30 real estate agents on the call, and every single one of them said without a doubt that home staging was going to be even more important after all of this than ever. And for this next year, ensuring that these homes are showcased properly, even if we can't go in and physically stage, but if we can at least help them with ensuring that, for owner-occupied homes, that things are positioned properly, that it's still showcased as best we possibly can. But because of the virtual world that we're living in right now, everyone is stepping up their game in terms of the photos, the videos, and all that stuff that they're doing. So can you imagine when we're reopened, how much more important it's going to be that every single house shines? Because the bar's been raised, in my opinion. I don't think that it's the opposite of that. And that's what the agents on this call were saying as well. So I really see a great future for the industry.
Yeah, and I see a lot of people asking, I'm getting personal emails from stagers asking, what do we do to stop the virtual staging? That now agents are wanting to use the virtual staging, and RESA needs to come out and speak out against it, and sky is falling. It's not. Still a naked, empty house when they get there. So because we have this onslaught of a health crisis and you're going to see an increase of the virtual staging, I think you will see a decrease in it as well, because the end result is still the fact that when you walk in, it's an empty home and there's no connection for that. So I think I agree that there's going to be a lot of opportunity as we start to get into recovery mode with this as well. I think it's a great opportunity for people to pick up on the virtual consultations. It's hard. I know a lot of people, some people have a business model where you do a little bit of both, occupieds and vacants, but then you've got a large community of stagers that only do vacants. So it's like, hey, you're only doing a vacant and you don't even do the consults. So you don't even have that pipeline streamed into your business. So that might be something going for the future that you might want to consider. Is there somebody on your team that likes to do an occupied, and maybe you just offer the virtual occupieds and you already have it set up, in case something happens from the next time. We have a question that I actually want to pose. This is really putting everybody on the spot. And let me preface this. Where did the question go? Lily asked this question. So Lily, let me preface this by saying that the three of us may not make a decision on this. This would be a board of directors decision that everybody would have to get some feedback on. So I'm going to just read the question as she wrote it. How do you feel about those that are in staging areas that are deemed non-essential? How do you feel about those that are still staging in areas that are deemed non-essential and they could possibly get fined and they're a RESA member? Is that a violation of the code of ethics? So we've had several people reaching out and saying, we're non-essential in this area, such and such is staging, they're a RESA member, I want to file an ethics complaint.
I mean, I don't necessarily disagree if they're committing any sort of illegal act that does go against the code of ethics. I mean, the other side of things is, like, your insurance company's not going to cover you if you're doing something illegal. Like, why are you, so I mean, they're going to get dinged on fines. Their insurance is going to get pulled. I think that there are consequences to doing that. I don't see any reason why an ethics complaint would be off the table as far as a consequence, personally.
Yeah. Richard, do you have any thoughts on this one?
Off with their heads, man.
Well, Shell, why don't you explain what the process is, though? Like, it's not as though if it's an ethics violation, it's not as though it's just an immediate, like, boom, see you later. You're not.
Yeah.
You're
So, all right. So I'll explain a little bit about the ethics and grievance policy that we have here at Real Estate Staging Association was brought to you in part because of stager-on-stager crime, as I like to call it, many, many years ago, probably 10 years ago at least. And we opened it up because we thought, you know what, we're a legit trade association. We need to have the code of ethics and we need to be able to do this. So we have a solid code of ethics. I'm proud of it. It's been worked on over the years by many people and we keep adding to it, which is great. So if you find yourself in a situation with another stager, and usually, again, this was originally created for stager-on-stager crime, and I'm open for, the board who wants to look at this process and revamp it a little bit. Totally open to that. It probably should be every few years. Let's take a peek at it. So the deal would be if Richard had a grievance against Shauna Lynn, and Shauna Lynn was doing something that Richard said was a violation of a code of ethics, then Richard would need to be able to go to Shauna Lynn and say, Shauna Lynn, you violated the code of ethics in this, this, and this, and this, and I'd like you to correct it. What say you? And Shauna Lynn says,
screw you.
Thank you so much for pointing out my flaws, Richard. I will correct it immediately. Then Richard needs to do nothing. Plan B is Shauna Lynn says, why, Richard, mind your own business. Take care of your own self. Pound sand. I'm not going to talk to you. Not going to resolve it. Not going to do anything. What are you going to do? And Richard says, oh, contraire. Watch what I'm going to do. Richard goes to the website, fills out the grievance form. We have a petitioner and a respondent, kind of the same way in a court case. And you would document then what the code of ethics was. You have to list which one of the code of ethics, 1 through 23, I think it is. Which did this person violate? What did you do to try to resolve it? What happened as a result of it? And what would you like to see happen? So that gets brought in, then the ethics chairperson is going to review it. We tend not to get into the middle of legal disputes. If there's like a lawsuit or something like that happening, we're not going to get in the middle of something like that. We're going to do our best to try to get everybody to work it out. Get on the phone with each other, try to work it out. But if it's something that does need to move forward, then what happens is that the respondent, the accused, this would be Shauna Lynn in this scenario, would get a copy of Richard's petition with a letter saying an ethics complaint's been filed against you. Here's the complaint. This is what the desired outcome is. If you agree with it, let us know. If you don't, let us know. Here's a form to fill out if you'd like to respond. And you're given so many days in order to respond to that. Typically, the person responds. And then what we do is that'll be reviewed. And if there's an amicable resolution right there, boom, we're going to act on that. And we're going to help try to amend this fence. If it's not so clear cut, which most of the time it is not, then we form an ethics committee. And so we have actually put out over the years, does anybody want to be part of the ethics committee? Sign up. We've got a problem. We have to choose, I believe, 5 people on the committee. We verify that those 5 people don't know the 2. They sign confidentiality agreements that, we will sell their children if they repeat any of this information or go out and write a tell-all book about it or a Lifetime movie. It's not going to happen. So everybody signs the documents, everybody reads everything, the committee discusses it, they pose questions back in writing to both the petitioner or the respondent, and then they make a recommendation. And the recommendation can be anything from do nothing to a fine to a suspension of your RESA membership, ultimately to revoke a membership completely. It's never happened, but that's the range. That's literally the range of something that could happen. So that's really about the process of the ethics and grievance policy.
Thank you because I think that's the biggest thing is it's not as simple as just like click a little button saying like you violated the ethics and just like click on all these people. It's there was definitely more to it, and as everyone's saying, I'm watching this chat box, and everyone's saying the same thing. There is there's some room for interpretation in these mandates in some cases. So the best thing that I can advise everyone is just do what you feel is the responsible thing to do. Look at the big picture. This is bigger than any one of us individually. And I understand that it's easy to say, but I need to pay bills. All of us have situations that we're in where we need to pay bills, whether it's because you're a single mom, you're supporting your entire family, you've got employees, you've got, extra houses, you're supporting your parents in long-term care, whatever. Like, I promise you, there are a gazillion reasons, and every one of them is valid for needing to make money, but not one of them is worth risking your life. So I need you, I would just say to look at what's going on around you, look at what your area, what kind of situation you're in. To Richard's point, if there's not a single case in, 100 miles of you, by all means, but you got to be responsible of what's going on around you, because we all were in an area at one time that didn't have any cases.
Yeah.
Okay. So this it can get there still. So the only way that we can, I hate to use this reference, and because I know this is meant to be more of like a PG talk, but let's just say, there's only one way that you can guarantee you won't get pregnant. There is only one way you can guarantee you won't get this virus and you won't spread it.
This is true. This is true. So here's a comment. If I'm correct, it's the Association of Realtors who are making these laws, and I'm not sure they're allowed to dictate what we can and cannot do, if indeed of following protocol and practicing social distancing. So actually, that is not correct. The Association of Realtors do not make any laws. They're a trade association with the same legal structure as RESA. They're a trade association. So what they do is they only have care and control over their members and what their members do. Laws are created by the legislature. And specifically, these state orders are created. The governors are the ones that issue those particular orders. And in some states, there are counties that have specific orders. And if you're in a state, like California is one state where we have a state order. And then originally there were a couple little smaller areas that had county orders. And in those particular areas, then you're going to default to whichever order is stricter, is the one that you're going to follow. So we had some problems up in the Washington area because the Washington Association of Realtors had put out information that's to their agents stating photography and staging is not essential. You cannot have a home staged. So that got out and stagers saw that. And so they're thinking they're having to follow what that association said. And so they were calling me. I'm like, why? You're not the boss of you. You don't have a membership with them. They don't dictate anything. They're just letting their agents know what they're recommending to be done. And at that point, I'd already been in touch with the governor's office, who had said that that it was part of real estate services and that they would allow that. So there was some confusion of there. So I always want to make sure that people follow the right chain of information. There's so much misinformation. So credible news sources. Now, I know there are people out there that will debate what is a credible news source, but it's definitely not one that, some janky website that you've never heard of. I'm talking about legitimate
government,
the government website, the CDC website. Those types of organizations are your credible. Getting all of your news from Facebook, probably not so credible, I would just say.
Yeah, so Canada.ca and Ontario.ca for those that are in my area. Those are the websites that I am on. Those websites every single day. There's a whole newsroom on Ontario.ca that I follow, and I see every single news release that comes out in case I've missed Doug Ford's address. So in whatever province you're in Canada, it's the Premier that makes those guidelines. Federal has not technically mandated anything overall. They're obviously, giving advice. They're working closely with the provincial governments, but essentially it comes down to the provinces themselves. Similar in the States, it's on a state-by-state basis for the most part in terms of what's actually mandated. That doesn't mean that there aren't guidelines coming from higher up, but I agree with Shell, though. I think that if you hear something or you see something, validate it before sharing it with anyone else, because misinformation is going to be the demise of any business, whether it's staging or whatever. But also, just do your due diligence and just make sure that you're comfortable with what those facts are and that they are facts, because there's just so much misinformation out there.
Yeah,
So make sure it's a
absolutely.
reliable source. I mean, Richard, you can follow Richard's feed on Facebook. I wouldn't consider that a credible source necessarily, but it's very entertaining.
I've always told Richard that I literally would like to go through his Facebook one day, when I have free time, and page through with all of the amazing statements that make
I know.
me just my body just laughs out loud. And I want to make a coffee table book with just that. Wouldn't that be the
It would make me very happy.
It would make me super happy as well.
Yeah.
So here we have Kelly's asking, do we have
just
any
gonna get so many friend requests after this.
We are.
Like, I need to follow his feed. Sorry, go ahead.
We are. We're gonna get you 10,000 likes by the end of the day, Richard. Because this matters so much. I love it when I can embarrass Richard because he chuckles and he turns red, and afterwards I'm like, he's gonna kill me. You realize this? He's going, Carol Baskin's my spirit animal, Shell. That's what I'm saying. So Kelly's asking about New Jersey. So Kelly, the New Jersey orders, there is no information one way or the other that I can indicate out of that. If you find some new orders or something updated you'd like to shoot to me in an email, you can certainly do that, and I'll take another peek at that. Sandra asked a question: if you don't have your own furniture and lease from a rental company for a vacant home staging, what suggestions do you have about addressing their protocols other than the obvious? And I wrote back to Sandra addressing whose protocols. I'm thinking she's meaning the rental furniture company.
Yeah, and are you talking about ensuring that they have the protocols, or about communicating what those protocols are to your clients? I guess that's sort of my question.
Yeah, Sandra, if you can type in a clarification, we can wrap back into this as well.
Mm-hmm.
Paula says it's a great question, but we don't understand it, so we will pause for a minute. Peg saying she lost a real estate agent that she was in a networking group with. It's heartbreaking. He was a great man. As bored as we are, ready to go back to work faster than death is real. You return to work and cause sickness or death. What would you want to do? Oh, so sorry for your loss, Peg. That's just, somebody explained it to me. It's like, this is especially, a month, 6 weeks ago, when I was like, really like, is this going to be a problem? This is not going to be a problem. We were teetering. Somebody says, okay, you got a bowl. Okay. Everybody knows I like almond M&Ms. Got a big bowl of my favorite snack food. 3 of them have poison. It'll kill you. Go ahead. Dig in. It's kind of what it's like, right? Because you literally don't know. And I have had the debate with people as well. It's like, okay, but if my team is going from point A to point B, and we're masked up and gloved up and alcohol sanitized, and we're just going to go and we're going to come back. All right. But someone on your team on the way to work stopped at the gas station who touched something, and somebody had expelled their droplets, and he's caught COVID-19 on his hand. Now he's come back to your office and he's driven your truck. And then he's put his hands on his face and he's got the virus. And then he goes home and he kisses his children, and then that goes. And then the children went to grandma's house to be babysat, and now grandma has it. And it's just one of those things where it just goes everywhere, and you can't control it. You can't see it. You can't smell it. You don't know who's infected. It's very frustrating.
So Gina's saying, can you correct some misinformation shared about virus being covered by most stagers insurance? I don't know that we can. I mean, maybe Shell can talk further on this. I think you have to talk to your insurance company. Do you not?
Well, there's apparently there's some information that people are circulating that feel that Gina, correct. What's the verbiage that I'm using? It's Gina, type it in there for me. The verbiage it's not a disaster or infectious disease. It's not infectious disease that's not covered. They say that it might be covered. They're thinking that something might be covered, but you actually have to suffer a loss. But something that's an infectious disease is not covered. And Gina, I'm really struggling. If you could type in what word I'm looking for quicker than you can think about it. She's in the back going, what is she talking about? I have no idea what she's talking about. Yeah. But yeah, there's information that says, hey, insurance, if you have staging insurance that, you're covered for this. Well, covered for what? Do you have a loss? You have to be able to prove that you have a loss. So something along those lines, it would be more in the lines of she can't recall a virus. that viral things are included. And from what our understanding is, while somebody might have a certain amount of coverage, you have to be able to prove that there was a loss because of it. And the loss is typically something that's physical. So it is definitely something you'd want to check with your own insurance company. You have to have a physical material loss. Check with your business interruption service. Thank you, Nina. I believe that's what it's called.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Business interruption service, but they don't necessarily cover pandemics, viruses, things of that nature, but you actually have to suffer some sort of material loss. So the best recommendation that we have through Villanova Insurance Partners is that if you feel that you have a claim, you may file one. Let your insurance carrier deny you. The responsibility is on them, and they all handle things differently. And depending on even what adjuster you get, might get a different answer. So if you feel that you've suffered some sort of loss and you can file a claim, do it. If you're with Villanova, call Judy. Will always go over whatever claim for any type of claim that you want to make. They'll go over a claim counseling session with you to decide, is this really something that you want to do? Because sometimes y'all think you might want to file an insurance claim, and if you get on the phone, you might get talked out of it. It might be more costly for you to file the claim than just to eat the cost.
And I know Nina and I were talking, actually, she's got the same insurance company that I do, and I'm still waiting to hear back from my actual agent. But my understanding is that for our insurance company, and this is, again, it's going to be specific by insurance company, but we don't necessarily have a claim in terms of our lost revenues, but we could have a claim in terms of our additional expenses. So I had to buy a printer for my assistant to work at home. That is an additional expense that I would not have had it not been for this pandemic. And those are things that may be covered for a claim. Now, of course,
Yes.
spend like $100 on her printer, probably not worth my effort to submit a claim. But this pandemic is going to be going on for some time, and I'm having to buy, extra cleaning supplies, face masks, disposable gloves, all these different extra supplies and such that could go on the claim, and these can all add up, obviously, to hundreds, possibly thousands of dollars in the end. So there may be a claim there, but yeah, definitely talk to your individual insurance company about it as well.
Yep, for sure. Absolutely. Great information. Any other questions that we have? Keep them coming. I like seeing, the different questions from everybody and where everybody's located as well. And Lori, yeah, you're right. Judy Fobe said that most insurance companies, after the last SARS experience, closed down that part of insurance coverage. So it's hit or miss. Ask your agent. Ask your agent for sure. Jane is saying she's still doing some occupied, so she can put her insurance on hold for a period of time since she doesn't have any inventory out.
Because your inventory is still being stored, so you want your
still being stored. Yeah, you got a fire, you want to be covered. I would recommend that you rethink that.
But I would look into, I know in Canada, so this was actually specifically done for Canada, I know, and I don't know if it's a possibility in the US, but in Canada, for your car insurance, your vehicle insurance, if you have any trucks or any sort of vehicles, whether you use them, just your personal vehicle for consults, or if you have commercial vehicles, you may apply to get a reduction in your insurance rate. I believe it's up to 30%. You have to go, again, directly to your insurance company, but because you're driving your car less, you may be able to get a reduction in your premiums for the next few months. So there may be something. I think at the end of the day, you got to have a conversation. Call your credit card companies and see if they'll reduce your insurance rate. Call your mortgage company and see if they'll defer, if you're comfortable doing that, if you want to do that. But you got to have the conversations, and it takes time. I'm still making some of these calls. It takes time to do it and cover all your bases. But if you want to save some money, that's the best way to do it. I know that I have, so for example, I have long-term disability insurance, and they could have paused my premiums, but then I would have had to get caught up right away. And I said, then don't bother. I don't want to be dealing with this big bill coming out of this. I'd rather just try to make the payments going through. So understand from them what it would mean if they were to, forgive a payment or whatever it is. Is it a forgiveness? Is it a deferral? Or is it simply just a hold that's being put on that? So
yeah. Oh, Jane is asking, Jane was asking, can she put the insurance on hold? Can or can't question, I would say, for your broker. I would just worry, whatever, like we said before, if you have inventory and that's being stored somewhere, if you have a fire, a flood, something like that damages your inventory, you're going to want to be covered. So I'd take that up with your broker and ask what their advice would be. Mary's asking, does anyone know about the PPP and have they applied the amount that they are owed? Or is the EIDL loan or Facebook loan? She's paying her team with emergency sick time and getting a tax break on payroll taxes because their kids are home from school and they qualify for emergency sick time versus having to use their own earned, trying to keep them on the payroll. Yeah, these programs, well, I tell you, I've been busy with these things. So in the beginning, before they passed these acts, I wrote letters to the President of the United States. I wrote the letter to the top four people on both sides, Nancy Pelosi, Schumer, I don't remember the other people's names, Mitch McConnell and one other guy's name. Wrote letters to all them to really encourage to include small business owners in any of their plans, and not just include them in plans for these loans, because way back then they were talking about loans that people had to pay back. And I was like, what is wrong with you people? We didn't cause this. Small business people didn't cause it. Why should banks be able to make money off the backs of small business people for interest on a loan? These things should be grants. So I wrote letters encouraging all that, to encourage these small businesses. And they opened up the program and they closed it down very quickly. And now I know they voted on something more as well in the United States. And they're looking at releasing that. I spoke to a couple banks today, and the best advice is you need to check your bank every single day, or other lenders, and check every single day as soon as this gets opened up, and get your application in nanoseconds, because you definitely are going to want to get it in. But if the money runs out again, what is it that we're going to do? So it's one of these things, you just have to stay on top of it. You need to definitely seek information out on your own with those resources. So if you've applied at the bank, call the bank. If you've got questions for the bank, ask the questions to the bank. Don't ask them on Facebook. Get all your information from the credible resources so you can be on top of everything.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, and let me just say that I mean, Facebook is a good source for information on where to find out where to go. But I'm always just astounded at people that going on Facebook and asking other stagers for legal advice, for accounting advice and things. Guys, there's nobody in these Facebook groups that is a lawyer. There's nobody that's a CPA. If you need professional advice, go to a professional. I mean, for heaven's sakes, we may have information. We may be able to tell you what my CPA said, but that only applies to my business. It will not apply to yours. My insurance agent told me something that applies to my business. It does not apply to yours. I mean, this is your business. You need to consult a professional that will deal with your business.
Very well said. Oh. Very well said. You can't take the easy road. You can't take there's no shortcut to this one. I know that, like, I've been saying since this started that my CPA is worth every penny. He is worth his weight in gold right now. I'm so grateful that I have a qualified CPA to help to guide me, where I can go to him with my specific scenario. He knows me, he knows my business, and he can help me specifically. But you're absolutely right, Richard. I mean, like, it goes back to, we've always said, yes, you can get a contract from another stager, but it should still be reviewed by a lawyer. So people are saying, what kind of clauses is everyone adding to their contract? Fine, you can ask those questions, but you better make sure you get it reviewed by a lawyer to make sure that's actually going to be something solid and will stick. And check with your CPA about what's going to be the best course of action for you to take. Yeah. Well said.
Let's talk about just contracts in general. I see a lot of stagers online sharing their contracts. Man, that is just, whoa. I sit there and look at that and I'm like, oh man, that's just a big ball of muck that I don't want to be involved with. I would never want anything to do that. I mean, I know I had a North Carolina attorney write a contract for me when I moved to North Carolina last year for my boarding stables. And it's one of those things. She was very, very specific. If you change anything, you need to let me know and to sign off on it, because once I've written it for you, if you change it, I cannot defend it. If you make any changes to that, I can no longer defend it. Yeah. So the other thing is that I've known stagers who've gotten contracts from other stagers and they didn't really understand the contract that they were signing. And then they used it, and then something happened, and then a situation came up and the client was like, oh no, you can't do that. And she's like, well, I am doing it. Well, that's not what your contract says. So sometimes they don't even understand it, and they don't necessarily know that it doesn't apply to them. So it is one thing if you want to get it from somebody else, but boy, you should review it. We also have that RESA Sure program now.
Yeah.
It's also through Villanova Insurance Partners, to where it's like $95 a year. It's kind of like the prepaid legal, but it's $95 a year. You get access to attorney Joe Denneler, love him, biggest fan right now. And he will either write a contract for you, review a contract. You can get his podcasts, all kinds of information. SCORE, that's another small business mentoring program. They've got a lot of information as well, as in addition to the SBA.
And for those in Canada, if you are with Northbridge Insurance, they have what's called Legal Assist, which is actually, it's no charge. It comes with your business insurance, and it's similar to the RESA Sure. If you're with another insurance provider, though, ask them. They might have something. Sometimes just a matter of, I don't know about you guys, but when my insurance policy comes up, they send me this big, massive document. I don't necessarily read every page of it. I know I should, but I don't. I'm trying to get better at making sure that I'm reviewing each year, like, is this still valid and everything else? But, you might miss something. So they might have told you that they have some sort of program in place. So it's always worth asking your insurance company too.
Yeah.
And
Nina was kind enough to post information from Northbridge as well. So if you're in Canada and you scroll down, look for Nina's post. It's about
Thanks,
this long.
Nina.
Talks about information. Thanks, Nina. So that says they do have a 10,000 limit for outbreak extra expenses. So if you're with them, call them, find out what they've got going on and how they can help you.
Perfect. Thank you for doing that, Nina. Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
What's Joe's name again for the podcast? Joe Denneler, Denneler. But if you go to Villanova, Google Villanova Insurance Partners, and so it'll also be on the website as well under business insurance at the RESA website and the resource area. And you can get him through there as well.
And Kim also brought up that she's got daily emails coming from the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, which I think is also great. These are great resources. If you have a small business center, they're a great resource. Go to resources that you know that you feel comfortable in the information they're going to provide you with, and they're going to have your best interest in mind with that information that they're providing too. Like they're not making a quick buck off of it. They're just there to support, similar to how RESA does. So yeah.
We'll take a few more questions. We're about 6 minutes after the hour, and we talked a lot of business, but can I just ask personally, Richard, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you. I had canceled a haircut like right before all this happened. And then I started looking like I had bozo hair. I had hair coming out this way. So I took some clippers to my hair, and my business partner, Jeff, told me I look like Edward Scissorhands. So I took clippers again, went shorter and shorter and shorter. And no, you cannot see the back. So
I don't know if you've seen it online, but if anybody follows Pink, apparently she did something similar. She had a couple cocktails one night and decided, I could be a hairdresser. And she's showing it online, lifting her little beanie up, and she scissor-handed all right. She definitely did that. Shauna, Lynn, how are you doing, Shauna? You don't, yeah.
So it was just, but I figured, like, who the hell is going to see me,
Hang out with me. I'm going to put you on every Thursday at 4:00. So
right.
Everybody will watch Richard's hair grow out. Shauna, Lynn, how are you doing on a personal level?
I'm doing well. I think that, to be honest, I've been so busy since all of this has started. So trying to, I think like most people, I feel like I got a lot of balls in the air, and I'm just trying to make sure that none of them, drop. I want to make sure that I have a business to come back to when all this is said and done. So I've kept my employees actually employed. So I know it's more professional than personal there, but it is personal though, because they're my family, So so it's definitely been, I'll be honest. I'm kind of enjoying not going out. If I'm being honest, I feel like it's kind of nice just not having anywhere that I need to go. There's certain parts that I miss, don't get me wrong, but it's sort of nice just to, I spend so much time driving from one appointment to the next, and I love driving, but like, it's just kind of nice to just feel like, all right, I know exactly where I'm going to be all day today, without having to worry about it. My cats are enjoying having me home. So, nothing to complain about there. So
there you go.
They've been very good for this whole thing. I had one of them next to me that I was petting for a good 20 minutes, but they've been really good. You haven't seen any of my kitty cats for this.
Well, that is okay. And Richard, Kathy Lee loves your hair, by the way, just saying. Okay, any last one or two questions? We'll be happy to take them. In the meantime, I just want to throw this slide up here. Oh, these slides when you load. Oh, well, unfortunately, I don't have the slide that Felicia asked me to create, because when Richard crashed our entire system at the beginning of the call, it disappeared and I haven't uploaded again. So it would take too long to upload as we were doing it. So I apologize for that. We do want to give you a couple resources, and I'll try to remember what Felicia asked me to do here. And I'm going to put some links.
It was for sign up for the next events, I believe. Right?
Yeah, signing up for the next events, and I don't have that.
I would just like to say, while you're doing that, I would just like to say that RESA has done an incredible job staying on top of this. I know that there is so much information to navigate, and I think we can all be overwhelmed by almost too much information out there. RESA's done a really good job of, curating that information into a nice, easy, readable format. So definitely you can start on the COVID-19 page that RESA has created as well. In addition to, like I said, check your government pages. But thank you so much to RESA for all that you guys are doing to keep all of us informed and keep us all sane, basically, through all of this. And thank you for putting on these talks. I mean, I think that this is exactly, we can tell by the questions that have been coming, and I think this is exactly what we need, just a forum to say, like, hey, can I get an answer? And if we don't have an answer, at least help to try to direct you guys to where you can get an answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So what Felicia wanted me to post for y'all is the future webinar schedules. So I did post that up, and then I also posted a link on the Homestaging Newswire. Or maybe it wasn't. I thought that it was. Maybe that was Felicia. Homestaging Newswire seeks RESA orders, trying to make an assessment one way or the other. Are we essential? Are we non-essential? Was there a way to apply for anything in the beginning? Most states have shut all of that down at this point. So everybody, what I'm doing is just deciphering them, getting the points that you need to be able to look out to make the decisions for yourself, and being able to send that out to all of our members. So I will have that updated tomorrow. We've been working on the awards this week. And then, of course, if there's anything it is that anybody needs in the meantime, please reach out to a staff member. We're doing our best to help you. We appreciate all of your support through this. This is only just a couple people at RESA HQ. We've got Vanessa and Gina, who works with all the chapters and the leadership. You got Felicia, who is just our amazing marketing, social media guru, you name it. She's the one who's compiling all this information and getting it out there. And then myself as well. So we are trying to get to it as quickly as we possibly can. But as you can imagine, North America is a big place. So we're getting through it as quickly as we possibly can. Any last words?
I was going to say, if you need direction, though, contact, if you know one of the board of directors members, if you know your state president, your provincial president, even just contacting your chapter leaders. But if you are finding that you don't have the answers, there's a lot of I've been very impressed with how leadership has been stepping up to help out. So turn to your leaders.
Great.
Richard, last words?
Looking forward to RESACon.
So RESACon, let's just talk about for just a smidge. So it takes, I know we make it look all so easy to put on a convention with 450 people at it every year. However, it is not. It takes a year to plan. There is not 1 month of the entire year that goes by that we do not work on RESACon. So the second that it ends, we're already working on the next one. So what we had to do is we had to pull it. So it is not going to be an in-person event. We've made many announcements about that, but we are doing everything we can to put it together for an amazing virtual event. So it will be in webinar format. We hope to maybe to use some technology so we can have some online networking going on to make it a little bit more fun for everybody and really turn it into something big, as well as the awards. The awards are going. We just stopped taking submissions on Monday. And right now we're looking for the rules violations so we can help everybody correct their rules violations so they can stay in the running. And then we'll open it up for the members to start voting. So hopefully in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we'll have some more solid information about RESACon, the virtual event. We hope everybody joins us. I'd like to remind you that, I don't know what I wanted to remind you. I don't know. Stay safe, stay healthy. We are going to do this once a week. I believe we're doing this as a series. If I'm wrong, Felicia, jump in and correct me. But I think we are going to do this every Wednesday to be able to check in. Information is changing literally by the minute sometimes. So we are going to do our best to compile information, to have a new webinar scheduled every Wednesday, and especially to address anything new that's happening and anybody's concerns as well, and announcements and things of that nature. So please join us again. Until next time, everybody, thank you both for joining me. I certainly appreciate it. I will talk to you all soon, and to everybody else that joined us, thanks for staying with us. Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.